everyone. I will continue doing a few more examples about graphing trigonometric functions. So I am going to do example 6 now. Y equals -2 sine of 1 over 2 x minus 4 plus 1. So we are going to sketch this graph. First, let's fill this table. So amplitude, as you know, the absolute value of A. So that gives us 2. Period, previously as we discussed, it is 2 pi over k. In this case, k is 1 over 2. So 2 pi over 1 over 2 gives us 4 pi. So 4 pi is the period. So zeros, max, and mins are happening every quarter period. So we need to take the period and divide it by 4. That gives us pi. So those significant points are happening every pi. So phase shift, k value is already factored here. So this is our phase shift, pi over 4 to the right. Template, as you know, we take the common factor between the quarter periods and the phase shift. So when you're taking the common factor, remember, so you look at the denominators and write both of them with the same denominators. So this is pi over 4. If you write pi with denominator 4, that gives you 4 pi over 4. And phase shift is pi over 4. Then we can see from here that common factor is pi over 4. That is the template. So horizontally, when you scale your x-axis, you should go by pi over 4s. Equation of axis. So here we have 1. So y equals 1. Now we are ready to sketch. Based on this equation of axis, you can also look at your maximum and minimum value. Let's remember, maximum is equation of axis plus the amplitude. That gives us 3. And minimum is equation of axis minus the amplitude. 1 minus 2 gives you -1. So y-axis, x-axis, equation of axis is y equals 1. Y equals 1. And maximum is 3, and minimum is -1. Now let's scale the x-axis. Again, we will go by pi over 4s, and we know that the period is 4 pi. So I kind of need to at least fit 4 pi here. So I'm going to mark 4 pi, 2 pi, 3 pi. And now, since I need to go by pi over 4s, I will divide each of these by 4. So pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, that is 4 pi over 4. 5 pi over 4, 6 pi over 4, 7 pi over 4, 8 pi over 4, 9 pi over 4, 10 pi over 4, 11 pi over 4, that is 12 pi over 4. 13 pi over 4, 14 pi over 4. So here is 15 pi over 4, and this one is 16 pi over 4. So let's mark our start point. That is very important. This is a sine graph. It always starts from 0, but in this case, because there is a vertical shift, that 0 will be on the new axis, on y equals 1. Okay, so because of vertical shift, we move that point, start point 0, from origin to here. And then we also need to do the phase shift. So phase shift is pi over 4 to the right. So pi over 4 to the right. So we need to put our start point right here. And if this was a positive sine graph, then after 0, you would go to maximum, then 0, then minimum, then 0. But because there's a reflection here, and that a value is negative, therefore, instead of going to maximum, so the pattern is going to go from 0 to minimum, 0, max, and 0. Okay, so we are going to mark the next point, which is a minimum now. So we need to go horizontally quarter period March. So quarter periods are pi, but if we wrote the same pi with the same denominator as phase shift, and that gives us, we found the common denominator, that was 4. So that gives us 4 pi over 4. So each marking, as you see, 1 pi over 4. So I need to go 4 markings to mark the next point. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, and put the minimum. 1, 2, 3, 4, put the 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, put the maximum. 1, 2, 3, 4, so which is 17 pi over 4, we put the 0. Now we can sketch the curve. Okay, let's look at example 7. What is the period of y equals cosine 2 over 3x? Period, again, it is 2 pi over k. K is 2 over 3 here. So 2 pi over 2 over 3. Convert this division into multiplication. So that gives you 2 pi times 3 over 2. So we end up with 3 pi here. Example 8. Find the period, amplitude, phase shift of this function. Okay. So when you're finding especially the phase shift, make sure you isolate the k value here. I mean, you factor it out. Okay. So then y equals negative 5 sine. So we need to factor out the k. Okay. And now we need to calculate what to put here. So as you know, when you're factoring a number from an expression, algebraic expression, so you divide each term by that common factor. So you take the first term, which is 3 over 2x, we divide it by 3 over 2, and you get x. Now we need to divide pi over 4 by 3 over 2 to check what to put here. Okay, so we are going to divide pi over 4 by 3 over 2. So this is pi over 4 divided by 3 over 2. So that gives you pi over 4 times 2 over 3. If you simplify this 2 and 4, you end up with pi over 6. So x minus pi over 6 goes here. Okay, so based on this, let's answer this question now. Period. 2 pi over k. K is 3 over 2. So flip the fraction, you get 2 pi times 2 over 3, which is 4 pi over 3. That is the period. Now amplitude, positive 5. Remember, amplitude is always positive. So you take the absolute value of the a value from the equation. So next one is phase shift. So now we can see that it is pi over 6 to the right. Okay, so let's look at example 9. This time the question is, write an equation of the functions graphed here in terms of both y equals sine theta and y equals cos theta. So this time they are giving me the graph, and you are trying to come up with the equation of that function. So for this kind of questions, there is infinite number of answers. So when you're writing the equation, so there are so many answers, but you want to pick the one that has the least phase shift. Okay. So in general, let's remember transformations on any sine or cosine graph will look like this. Y equals a times sine or cosine k times x minus d plus c. So when you're finding the equation, you need to come up with a, k, d, and c values. Okay, so let's look at the first graph. So as you see, the maximum is 7, minimum is 1. The line that goes in the middle is the axis, and the equation of that axis looks like is y equals 4. So that gives you the c value, which is the vertical shift. So c value is 4. Now amplitude, as you know, is the distance, vertical distance from axis to the maximum or from axis to the minimum. That is the amplitude. In this case, from 4 to 7 or from 1 to 4, it is 3 units. So amplitude is 3 units. Okay, and we said C value is 4. Then you need to get the period to be able to get the K value. The period here, so if when you're calculating the period, so that is the horizontal distance for one cycle. So you can go from maximum to maximum, that would be one period, or you can go from minimum to minimum, that would be one period, or if you want to go from 0 to 0, so let's say you start from here, so not the first, but you need to go to the second 0 to look at the horizontal distance for one cycle. So that would be one period here. Okay, so if you use that now, so if you go from, if you start from 0, so it looks like that start point is negative pi over 4, and now the end point, it's not that clear, but you can see that it is close to 2 pi. So it looks like that distance also pi over 4. So from you are going, so it looks like that is 2 pi here. Okay, so period is 2 pi. Also, you need to look at the phase shift. So phase shift is, let's start with sine graph. If we do the sine graph, it starts from a 0. So it is pi over 4 to the left. So phase shift pi over 4 to left. Okay, so that amplitude is going to give you the A value. C value is the equation of axis. We already wrote that. The period is going to help you to get the K value. We said that period is 2 pi over K. So period is 2 pi over K. If you rearrange this equation, you get K equals 2 pi over the period. So now I can do 2 pi over period is 2 pi. So it looks like in this case, the K value is 1. Okay, and we already looked at the phase shift here. So Y equals, so that is this is one possible answer for this question. So amplitude is 3. So since we are going from 0 to maximum, so it looks like we're going to take positive 3. Okay, if we take this as a start point. If you took this as a start point, the phase shift is going to be different, but also because after 0 you go to minimum, so you would need to take negative 3. But in this case, after 0 we go to the maximum, so we take the positive 3 here. So sine, so K value is 1. Then we do x pi over 4 to the left, so plus pi over 4 and plus 4. This is one possible answer. We also need to write the same graph with the cos, right? Equation cos. So okay. So when you are doing that, A value, K value, and C value will remain the same. So the difference will be only the phase shift. Okay, D value will be different. So I know that I'm going to put 3 here, cos, K value is 1, x. So only difference will be again the phase shift. Okay. So if you start from this point, which is the maximum, okay. So if you are starting from the maximum, you take positive cosine, positive A value here. If you start from a minimum, then you should write negative cosine. Okay. So since we are writing from starting from the maximum here, I know that 3 is going to be positive. Then let's check the phase shift. So looks like that is pi over 4 as well. So if you can't decide, you can also think it this way. One period is 2 pi, and quarter periods are pi over 2. So that means that between 0 and max and 0, and from 0 to minimum, so those horizontal distances are pi over 2 each time. So this is a 0 and that is a maximum. The horizontal distance between these two must be a quarter period, which is pi over 2. So this is negative pi over 4, then the next one has to be positive pi over 4 here. So that the horizontal distance between them is 1 quarter period. Okay, so that is now x minus pi over 4. So we are already done with this question, but just to give more examples, okay, so I'm just going to also do, let's say, a negative sign, okay. So then I would take this point or this point as a start point. So if we take this point as a start point, so again, the A, K, and C values will remain the same. So 3 sine K is 1 plus 4. But our start point is here now. If this is the case, after the 0, we are going to the minimum. That gives us negative 3 here. But then what is the phase shift? Again, we just discussed horizontal distance between the significant points is 1 quarter period, which is pi over 2 in this case. So if you add pi over 2 to pi over 4, you get 3 pi over 4. So this is 3 pi over 4. So x minus 3 pi over 4. If you want to do a negative cosine, this time you could start from here, from a minimum here, or from a minimum there. Okay, so let's do y equals negative 3 cosine x plus 4. So if we start from a minimum here, so now phase shift is going to be, again, the distance between a 0 and a minimum is a quarter period, which is pi over 2. So if you go pi over 2 to the left from negative pi over 4, you get negative 3 pi over 4. That is negative 3 pi over 4. That gives you plus 3 pi over 4 here. Okay, let's look at the next example. Similarly, first let's look at the axis. Looks like that is y equals negative 4. That's going to give us the C value. Next, look at the amplitude. So that is the vertical distance from axis to maximum, or minimum is the same thing. So the amplitude is 5 units. So let's look at the period. So if you go from maximum to maximum, looks like that is 4 pi. And so based on what we want to write, sine or cosine, phase shift is going to change. But again, let's calculate the k value. We said that k is 2 pi over the period. 2 pi over 4 pi gives us 1 over 2. So actually, if you want to write it with the least phase shift, then you would use positive cosine, because that maximum point exactly on the y-axis means there is no phase shift. So let's start with that one. So we said amplitude is 5 cosine. So k value is 1 over 2, so 1 over 2x. Again, if you are doing a positive cosine, and if you start from the maximum, there is no phase shift in this case. That maximum point is on the y-axis, so no phase shift, and minus 4, which is the C value. Okay, if you do the sine, 5 is going to be the same, so we may put negative here, of course, but then k value is the same. we're going to have a different phase shift though, and C value is going to be the same. Okay, so let's say we want to start from here. If you start from here, after 0, you go to the maximum. So that gives you a positive A value. Then we keep positive 5 here. Now we need to check the phase shift. Okay. Then again, so one period is 4 pi. Quarter period is pi. So between 0 and a maximum, the difference between horizontal distance between those 2 points must be 1/4 period, which is a pi. So if we go pi back here, we get negative pi. Okay, so this gives us plus pi for this equation.